The Tennis Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Like Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code SGPN to get 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Tuesday morning, roughly 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on January 14th. I'm host always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the second round of the Men's Australian Open. So we're going to quickly recap what happened in the last two episodes, actually, because we did have a women's episode and a men's episode. So we did have two separate lock and dog picks. We're going to get into the recap of those picks as well as some recap, I'd say, just overall, some matches that I thought caught my eye from round one, going through briefly the results there, and then we'll get into round two. A reminder, though, if you are new to the show, the actual formatting, usually for the smaller events, we do have, once again, the outright episode pre-tournament, and then on top of that, we also end up having episodes from the quarterfinals onward, so we cover every match in those episodes. For Grand Slams and Masters 1000 events, and I guess technically the ATP Finals, we cover every round. So with that being the case, we're back here for the second round. There are too many matches to go through individually. So instead of going through all of them, we're going to cover some of them that caught my eye. I'll kind of pick them at random. We'll get into some matches, and then we'll get into the best bets at the end of the show with the lock in dog picks as always. Now, before we get into the recap of the actual first round, do want to remember once again that you can show support for the show by subscribing on YouTube, and you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder to check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great Tennis Game Podcast merch with sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality, all affordable. So once again, recommend getting yourself something on the merch store, not just for this show, but for the NBA show. You have the MLB show. You have the college experience if you want to get some college thoughts on basketball, football, etc. And a reminder, they can also find a lot of the actual podcasts, basically all of them, on the SGPN app. So if you do want to find easy access to all of the podcasts on the network, once again, try the app for easy access to get all of our free picks and podcasts. It's on the App Store, completely free. Now, starting off with the actual recap of the lock and dog picks from the last two episodes in the men's first round, etc., with the outrights as well as the women's first round and the outrights. We had a perfect two episodes. Ended up sweeping the lock and dog picks for both episodes. We've now swept 5 of the last 6 lock and dogs. So once again, we have been absolutely rolling, and all the picks have been free. So hopefully you've enjoyed profiting. For the actual men's episode, did have a nice and easy lock. Beat a massive line move, too. Had Fernley plus 2.5 games at minus 140. I think it closed at around pick'em when it actually ended up starting. And I think Fernley closed at like plus half a game. Was never in doubt. He won in straight sets. I don't really understand the line at all. I still don't. The fact is Kyrgios was priced based on reputation and based on him being at home in Australia. The problem is he couldn't move because his abdomen was still messed up. And we knew this because he dropped out of an exhibition event right before this. So we knew he was injured. And we knew that he played, once again, barely any tennis in the last year and a half. And he was favored against a pretty good player in Fernley. I know Fernley made it a bit interesting there in the third set when the nerves kind of got the better of him. Then he regained his composure. I still can't believe Kyrgios was favored in that matchup. And apparently the markets agreed because they slammed Fernley over the day or so before the match after we recorded. But either way, no matter what number you got, you won. As Fernley did win in straight sets. Not much easier than that. For the dog, we had Nishioka to win and both players to win a set at plus 142. That was also never in doubt because Nishioka did lose the first set, then he won the next 3. So he ended up winning in 4. Once again, 2 very easy lock and dog winners for the men's episode. Still, I think a great idea for the future if you are kind of new to tennis betting. If you see a massive favorite, and you can try to find some ways to potentially reduce the juice on some players. Nishioka was like minus 800 on the money line, give or take, and we turned minus 800 to plus 142, and he still won. So just once again, kind of a side point, you can find value on massive favorites in Grand Slams if you just know exactly where to look, because you can get Nishioka, for example, to win while saving about $9.50 by just finding a prop, or I'd say a stipulation attached to winning, which can find you some value. For the women's episode, though, it was a lot more stressful, but we did sweep again. For the lock, we had Snigor plus the 4.5 against Collins at minus 110. That was an absolute sweat and a half. We had a great first set for us, one of the best outcomes possible, which was Collins winning the first set via tiebreak. Then Snigor could not hold to save her damn life, but she eventually ended up holding when she needed to, down, I believe it was 5-1. She held, fighting off a couple of match points, and then after that, we needed her to break. That's the only outcome we actually had to rely upon. And Collins had a couple of match points. She fought him off, and then eventually she shanked a return in play on break point, and Collins slammed it into the net as we got the break, and then eventually she got broken the next game. So Snagura lost by 4. Not easy, still counts the same. We'll take it. And for the dog, ended up having a nice winner there with Navarro and Stearns over 2.5 sets at plus 130. That one was really never in doubt. I know we did go to a tie break in each of the first 2 sets, but we picked probably the most competitive match, both men's and women's, in the entire first round. The match took about 3.5 hours. Those two killed each other. I think it was 6-7, 7-6, 7-5 or something. It was an absolute war. But either way, point is Navarro and Stearns got over as it ended up getting into a third set. So once again, ended up sweeping all 4 picks from the first round on the men's and women's side. So overall, can't complain. Apologies if you were looking for more women's picks for the second round. We're going back to men's only for this podcast. Nothing against the women. I'm just, in my opinion, a lot better at breaking down men's tennis to women's tennis. So I don't want to force more picks on the women's side. The point is the men's side started off well. Hopefully we will keep it running. A reminder, though, I feel like I kind of have to gloat about it because we have swept 5 of the last 6 episodes. There are a lot of really bad tennis handicappers on Twitter that are charging money for it. Don't pay for it. Like, once again, if you want, in my opinion, good information and free picks, check out the podcast. Free. We upload multiple times per week. It's going to be up for every single round. We'll bring back the women's, by the way, for probably the semis, maybe the quarters, actually, of Australian Open. But a reminder, if you see a bunch of people putting 50-unit bombs on random tennis stuff, telling you to join their dub club or just paying behind a paywall, you can come here instead. So once again, if you know some people that want some tennis picks, send them over to the podcast. We're trying to get to over 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. I think we're in the mid to high, what are we at, like 600s or something? I kind of forgot. I think we're in the mid 600s, but I kind of have to gloat because they're all kind of charging money for picks, and I truly believe I'm better than them. So there you go. Point is, all the picks are free. We're not going to charge anybody anything. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully you do enjoy the content, and hopefully you keep showing up. And if you are new, hopefully you enjoy the show. Anyway, time to get into the actual first round recap and a bit more depth of the first round matches. So starting off with the first day, ended up having a couple matches that were absolute marathons. You saw Nishikori come back from 2 sets down, one of the best 5th set players of all time. I believe he's now 29-8 straight up in 5th sets in his career. Absolute marathon man extraordinaire, and he got the job done there against Montero in 5. Saw Ruud get the job done there against Munar. It's never easy with Ruud, but we have him as an outright to win the quarter, and he did survive. So I guess survive and advance there. Besides that, though, I'm moving on to the next day. You had a couple of competitive matchups as well. Not as many 5-setters, but you had a couple. So starting off with some interesting matchups here. Ended up seeing, Pelka 1-4. Saw Zverev look good, beating Pui in 3 sets. So the injury concerns may have been overblown. We'll see. Did win in straight sets, though. Saw Mensik win against Basilashvili in 4. I'm kind of surprised Basilashvili actually qualified for the Australian Open. Good for him. He was a former top 25, top 30 guy. His career fell apart, and now he was able to qualify and make it into the Aussie Open draw. So good for him. Tiafoe had a crazy match against Rinderknech where his body betrayed him, and he won anyway. Ended up puking in the 4th set. He had massive cramps. It looked really bad. And then Tiafoe got the job done there as he broke, and then eventually broke again, actually, to win the match. Either way, though, nice win there for Tiafoe. Not sure if he's got much left in the tank, but either way, a win's a win, and we'll see how he looks into the future. Besides that, Tabilo got upset. He's been pretty bad lately, to be honest. Nice win by Baena, who's mostly a clay specialist, but recently he's been better on hard court, so good for him. Tsitsipas. Yeah, of course Tsitsipas would lose in the first round to Mickelson. Yeah, some things don't change. There's the expression, new year, new me in 2025, and I guess Tsitsipas is happy that Quitter's Day passed because that resolution went right out the window. Welcome back, Tsitsipas, who ended up losing in the first round to Mickelson. Mickelsen's a good player, don't get me wrong, but damn, Tsitsipas is still a laughingstock in my eyes, and I'm sure for most people that listen to the podcast who've listened to me roast Tsitsipas for, 3 years at this point, I feel like my takes have aged pretty well. So we'll see what happens with him in the future, but either way, it is not rock bottom. We've seen rock bottom. I would say that was Galan in the first round of the U.S. Open when he was down like 6-0, 5-0 a couple years ago. But point is, it has not been, I'd say, good for Tsitsipas recently, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Besides that, Borges won in 4 against Mueller. Sommer Rosen beat Thibaut Wild in a competitive 5. Besides that, Vukic had a weird match against De Zoomer, but he ended up winning in 5. You saw Thompson beat Kempfer in 4 there. Draper had a weird match against Navone, as Draper lost 2 of the first 3 sets to a clay specialist and came back and he won the last 2 sets, so he ended up winning in 5. So that was a pretty funny, I'd say, a betting pick that was given out by somebody who actually charges for picks. I love it when people charge for picks and they give you a freebie on Twitter, and it's like the worst pick you've ever seen in your entire life, and you kind of wonder how these people actually get people to pay for their picks. Somebody gave out Navone for 4 units as a live money line play. I think it was after the 3rd set, so he was up 2-1, and somebody was telling others to slam Navone for like 4 units. And Navone, of course, being a clay specialist, Draper being once again a U.S. Open semifinalist. And before the match, Navone was 10-1, and he's telling people to bet 4 units on Navone live at, once again, plus 105. Yeah, not exactly a great value play. And Navone, of course, lost, so of course, that guy was selling VIP picks. So once again, if you want some bonus picks for a guy that lost 4 units on Navone on hard court, you know where to find him. It's on Twitter. But once again, Navone ended up losing. Can't really roast him. He played well. It just seems like he has kind of figured out hard court to some degree, but he still can't serve. And Draper eventually settled in, as he eventually did win in 5. And you saw Kokkinakis beat Safulin in 4. Pretty standard Kokkinakis Grand Slam match where it was competitive. Got into a bit of a war. Wasn't a 5-setter, though. But you saw Kokkinakis get the job done in 4. Moving on to the matchups on Monday. You ended up having Kaza, who ended up beating Baez in 5. Baez has been a mess. He's just waiting for the South American clay, I'd say, swing to come around, and then, of course, he'll end up winning a 500 probably in Rio. You saw Nishioka beat Dugas, of course, cashing us the dog play. Korda beat Klein in 4. You saw, besides that, Felix get the job done against Struff in 4. Couple of very, very lopsided sets in that one. Saw Shang get injured again as he ended up dropping out. Not a shock because he's injured every event, but it's still sad to see as Fekina beat him when he was up 7-6, 5-2, and Shang ended up dropping. You saw a Fognini drop out because of injury, and they replaced him with another Italian in Pizarro, and Dimitrov got injured as Pizarro did beat him via retirement, so Dimitrov clearly not 100%. We saw him drop out in his last match against Leheshka, and it clearly didn't, I'd say, resolve itself as he had to drop out mid-match. You saw Alcaraz win in 3 against Shevchenko, looked fine. Djokovic beat Basavaredi in 4. Kind of the exact outcome I thought we were going to get, actually. Thought Basavaredi was going to win a set, and then Joker would eventually win in 4. That's what happened. Nice win there for Joker, but also a nice showing by Basavaredi, who showed he still has a lot of upside as a potential up-and-comer. Fernley beat Kyrgios. Kyrgios might retire. He said he's going to try to use protected ranking to play a bunch of Grand Slams. Good luck to him. His body is a shell of its former self, and I don't expect him to have much success on tour. We'll see. Of course, it's more fun whether you like him or not when he's actually competitive, but, I mean, his abdomen was bad, his wrist is bad. I don't really think he's going to be able to compete seriously in the immediate future, but we'll see what happens. Besides that, though, ended up seeing Goffin lose comfortably to Bonzi. Paul had a 5-setter against O'Connell, choked when he was serving for the match in the 4th, came back and he won the 5th. Of course, every Paul match is interesting, but he got the job done there in 5. Berrettini ended up beating Nori in 4, good win for him. Diallo beat Nardi in 5 as well. Kekmanovic beat Lajovic in 5, not exactly surprising, at least to me, that Kekmanovic turned an easy draw, or you could argue an easy draw, into a circus, but he got the job done there eventually, so I guess no harm, no foul. You saw Kashanov ended up beating Manarino in 3. Rune beat Zhang in 5. Definitely not a surprise there. Rune, we know, is an absolute head case, and that match turned into a war. Brooksby came back and got destroyed. Not, once again, surprising for a guy who missed about a year and a half, 2 years, who played no tune-up matches at all, facing a top 4 player in the world based on ranking. So Fritz killed him in straight sets. Tien beat Carabelli in 5 in that match. Was pretty fun as well. You saw Bublik the Clown return as he lost in straight sets to Cerundolo. It's a little bit too hot outside for Bublik, though. 80-something degrees. He doesn't want to be there. So, once again, Bublik got destroyed. Ended up seeing Chorich lose, too. Damn, he's been terrible lately. Monfils beat Perricard in 5. Hurkacz beat Griekspoor in 3. Diaz Acosta beat Bergs in 5. Medvedev had a crazy 5-setter against a relative unknown. Minus 10,000 on the money line pre-match, and that ended up going 5 sets. So a nice win there for Medvedev, I guess. Still kind of an embarrassing showing, but I thought that Samraj played pretty well and eventually just ran out of gas. Altmaier beat Comasanya in 5, and you also had a couple other matches that ended today. this morning. Musetti beat Arnaldi in 4. Shelton beat Nakashima in 3. Sonego beat Wawrinka. Might be the last time Wawrinka plays the Australian Open. Fun matchup, though, but Sonego did win in 4. Boyer beat Coria in 5. Besides that, Caboli lost in 4 to Echeverry. Giron won in 4. Shapo beat Agud, in 4. Mutet beat Papirin. Dimenauer beat Dzanchulp, and he ended up seeing Fonseca continue his hot ways. He ended up beating Rublev in straight sets. Damn, Fonseca's really good. Nothing else to add there. That was a mouthful, a lot to actually recap. The point is a lot of fun matches, a lot of competitive matchups, and weather's been a bit of a factor. It has been pretty hot, so some fatigue can be a concern here. We'll see how players recover. Just keep that in mind. See some comments, by the way. I see, of course, Rublev getting roasted. Yeah, losing in straight sets isn't great, but damn, Fonseca's really, really good. Just going to throw that out there. I thought Fonseca would win the match, so I didn't think he'd win in straight sets, but I'm not shocked that Fonseca got the job done there. Wall's telling me that the matchups have been close, a lot of them. Once again, you've seen some guys punting sets. You've also seen just some competitive wars break out. The fatigue definitely plays a factor in the heat. So you might see some guys play well early, and then their body betrays them, and the match gets very competitive. That's kind of what's happened to a couple of players that either won or lost. A lot of injury timeouts mid-match, so just keep that in mind. Rex, enjoying the show. Thank you. Ike's back. Welcome back there. Besides that, Greg, thanks for stopping by. Anyway, that's going to recap the actual first round of the Australian Open. Time to move on into the second round. Before to that, though, I want to remember once again that we are brought to you by DraftKings because the playoffs are here. Playoffs about the playoffs, and of course, we are. And if you want to get on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, scoring touchdowns, of course, is key to winning in the playoffs. You could win big by betting on them at DraftKings, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook's app or the website to make your pick. A reminder that new customers do get a $5 promo. If you bet $5, you get $200 in bonus bets, which is definitely a great deal. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SGP. This code SGP for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So once again, a great deal. Recommend checking that out.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gun Podcast. Just finished recapping the first round. Time to move on into the second round of the Aussie Open. So, a reminder, we are not going to cover every match because we don't have exactly a couple hours to work with here. So, we're going to cover some matches that caught my eye. Starting off with the first match, going to look at the matchup between you know what? We'll go with the Opelka match first, actually. We'll go with Opelka taking on Makic. Now, Opelka is expected to lose pretty comfortably, I'd say. You're looking at Makic being around minus 240. You have Opelka at plus 200. For the game spread, you have minus 3 for Makic. You have plus 3 for Opelka. The over-under in games is set at 42.5. Now, Makic, I think, is the better player, so I understand why he's favored. He looked good in the first round against Nagal, which was a good win for him. As for Opelka, he had an interesting start, losing the first set to Onklin, but he came back and he won the next 3 sets. So I do think you're looking at Makic being better. The question is, can he break enough? Because Opelka, if his serve is on, I think he'll be able to, once again, keep the match competitive, and you probably just want the over in this one. Now, I think Makic will win. Do I think he'll win in straight sets? I'd say no. I think Opelka can find a way to, once again, sneak a breaker to go in his favor. So maybe you want the games, but I think Makic to win and both players to win a set could be intriguing for plus money. I think that, once again, he maybe could win in straight sets. I see probably 4 if I had to go for it. Makic, though, minus 1.5 sets is minus 110. That I do kind of like. I think Makic is better than Opelka. I know Opelka beat Joker a couple weeks ago. He's had a back issue, though, something to monitor, and I do wonder how his back's going to hold up as the event goes on. But beating a relative unknown in 4 sets, I'm not going to suddenly, give him a round of applause, a standing ovation for that performance. Thought he was okay, did well enough to win. Makic beat Nagal, who once again is not a great server, so that was a pretty good matchup for him. But I do think at the end of the day, you're looking at Makic being better, and I do think that him in 4 is realistic. I don't mind Makic minus 1.5 sets here. He's got firepower. So does Opelka. Maybe you get a bunch of breakers, but I do think Makic is better objectively as a player. So I'll go with him in either 3 or 4 with, once again, the minus 1.5 set option at around minus 110, minus 115 as my favorite play in that one. Moving on, jumping around a bit to the next matchup. Going to look at the matchup between Thompson and Borges. Now, this should be a fun one. Thompson is, of course, the home country guy. Borges has been playing pretty well lately, made a deep run to the semis last weekend, ended up losing to Bergs, and then eventually won the first round here in 4 sets. Now, you're looking at Borges, and there is one common theme that I have to mention for the matchup. The guy really can't win a first set. So I got to start off there because Borges is going to be a pretty decent price to win the match. He's around plus 110, give or take. He is 2-0 lifetime against Thompson, but they are a bit dated, faced off on grass in 2022 and faced off on clay in 2021. So we'll see how he handles the crowd here in Australia, which can be a bit, I'd say, rowdy at times. Now, Borges, though, has been punting every first set imaginable. So to get into the recent matchups, Borges dropped the first set to Mueller in this event, dropped the first set in all 4 matches in Auckland, dropped the first set in the first match in Hong Kong as well. So Borges has lost the first set in 6 straight matches. And if you want to go back further, he has dropped the first set in 7 of his last 8 matches. So if you want to go for Thompson, you think he's going to win, I don't mind Thompson to win first set and win match at probably plus money. I think I have to go with that because I think he's going to win. Maybe it turns into a marathon, but I do think you're looking at Thompson, who, if you pick him to actually have some success, I think fading Borges in the first set when he's dropped the first set in, once again, 6 straight matches, I think there's value on it. Actually, wait, it's more. He dropped the first set. No, yeah, it's 6 matches. Sorry. Wait. Did I get that right? 6. No, it's actually longer. Apologies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 straight matches. Drop the first set in 8 straight. So once again, if you want to go for Thompson to win the first set and the match, I don't hate it. Either maybe Thompson first set money line if you want to get cute with it. But once again, you drop the first set in 8 straight, and you've actually been winning some matches in that one. I don't mind just blindly fading you in the first set. So keep that in mind. I'll go with Thompson on that one to win, I'd say, the match in general, but I like him to win early to reduce the juice a little bit. I'll fade Borges in the first set until he actually wins a first set, which I feel like is pretty, I'd say, I think that's common sense, but once again, we'll just roll with that until it loses. Moving on to what should be interesting matchup. You have a matchup between Nishikori and Paul. Now, for this one, this is a fun matchup between 2 guys that went to 5 sets in the first round. You saw Nishikori fight off 2 match points. He looked fantastic as the match went on, I mean. As for Paul, kind of a weird match for him because Paul was probably going to win in 4, and then he had a massive choke there at the end of the 4th set. Then he came back and he won the 5th. So Paul has been kind of an interesting player to evaluate because the upside is definitely there. However, he kind of messes around all the time, and he makes matches more interesting than they need to be. So the question is, do I think Paul is worthy of being minus 250 in this one? The truth is, I would have said yes had Paul not went to 5 sets as well in the first round. The argument is Nishikori might run out of gas after going 5 sets in the first round. He had extra time off because his match was, I believe, a day before Paul's was. So I do like the fact that Nishikori has extra rest time in between. For this one, I actually think Nishikori's live to win it. I gave him out to win the quarter once again at 42-1. Didn't look good for the first about hour and a half of the first round, but we're still here, so can't complain. I think it's a close matchup. Faced off one time in the past. That match was a marathon. Nishikori did beat him in 2017. Very dated, means nothing. Point is, though, I do think it's going to be a close matchup. I don't mind the over in general. I think you might get a potential 5-setter here. These guys might kill each other. Like, that would not shock me at all. You're going to see a lot of long rallies, but I think Nishikori, if he can play the way that he did in the 4th set and the 5th set, he is definitely live to win this. I'm just saying, Nishikori, for a guy that has not played much tennis over the years because of injury, for a guy that lost in the final a couple weeks ago in an event, and for a guy that, once again, you were kind of concerned about, I'd say stamina and durability-wise, after losing the first 2 sets, he answered every question against Montero there. Montero wasn't even bad. I just thought Nishikori was amazing for the last couple sets, and I think if he plays that well, he can beat Paul. So for the value, I can't take Paul at 250. I think Nishikori's alive. So I think that plus 202 is a decent price. I think the argument might be, once again, picking a marathon here, maybe going for the over, maybe even 4.5 sets. If you want to go for a full marathon, you can go for a potential good price there. But I see an absolute war. I think these guys are going to kill each other. That's my thoughts on that matchup. Moving on to the next matchup. I'm going to skip over Alcaraz and Nishioka. No offense to Nishioka. He, of course, did cash us the dog play for the previous episode, but I think Alcaraz wins in straight sets. Like, I'm not going to try to get cute with this. I think Nishioka is still not a good server, and I think it's going to hurt him in this one against Alcaraz, so not really going to dive into that one. You have Hallis against Fees, which I think should be interesting. For this one, you have Hallis being a decent-sized dog here, as we're looking at Fees being around minus 450. Hallis is plus 360. For the game spread here, you minus 5 for Hallis. You minus 5 for Fees. You plus 5 for Hallis. The over games is set at 37.5. For the set spread here, you have Fees to win minus 1.5 sets here at minus 185. You have Hallis to win plus 1.5 sets. So in other words, for Hallis to win 2 sets in the match, it is plus 155. The over 3.5 sets, though, is minus 140. Think that is my main angle for this one. Faced off 3 times in their careers. You saw Fees beat him on clay in 2023 in 3 sets. Faced off in Montpellier in 2023 as well. Fees did win in straight sets, with a breaker, though, in there. Faced off in Torino on clay in 2022, and Hallis did win in 3. So I think that Fees is another type of player. I kind of just said it about Paul. I'll kind of just reuse that actual, I'd say, comment about his playing to Fees. He's a guy with a bunch of talent who should win a lot of matches, but he makes a lot of ordinary matches very interesting, and not in a good way on his behalf. He really has a flair for the dramatic, where he tends to fall apart for a couple minutes here or there, and suddenly he's in a 5-setter against an inferior opponent. So I'm going to go with the over 3.5 sets here. I think Fees should win. It wasn't easy in the first round either. I think that Fees, who ended up having a 4-setter against Virtanen, I think he's a guy who's a bit of a slow starter, who tends to let his opponents hang around, and then he hits a gear and he eventually wins. Hallis had to come back from 2 sets down, though, against Walton, came back in 1 and 5. I'll go with the over 3.5 sets because I just don't trust Fees to win in straight sets on any given day, because he constantly messes around for 1 set, and if he ends up taking 30 minutes off, he's going to lose a set. So I am going to go with the over 3.5 sets here. I think minus 140 is a pretty cheap number for what I think should be a 4 or a 5-setter. Moving on to the last matchup of the first day, going to look at Fokina taking on Felix. For this one, Fokina is a decent-sized dog here, as he is currently around plus 250. Felix is minus 300. For the game spread, you have minus 5 for Felix, you have plus 5 for Fokina. For the game spread, you have for the game total, you have over or under 36.5. Set spread, you have Fokina plus 1.5 sets at plus 115. You have Felix minus 1.5 sets at minus 145. The over 3.5 sets is minus 150. Now, Felix had an interesting first round match against Struff because he dominated the first 2 sets, dropping 3 games combined in the first 2 sets. Then he dropped the 3rd set randomly. Then he eventually did win in 4 very easily, 6-1 in the 4th. Also off the win in Adelaide, so he's been in good form. As for Fokina, tough to evaluate because he beat Agut in the first round in Adelaide, then lost to Korda in straight sets, but then he ended up beating Shang. I can't really tell how to grade it because Shang once again got injured midway through the match and quit. So Fokina's a guy with a bunch of talent. He's all the talent in the world, but he just doesn't have the mental toughness, and it's why he's never won an ATP title despite being very talented. Now, for the head-to-head history, Felix has been good against him. Felix is currently 4-0, actually, against him, but there have been a lot of competitive sets, actually. Faced off in Doha in 2023, that was a 6-4, 7-6 win for Felix. Faced off in Rome, 2022, so that was on clay. Did go 3 sets. Felix won. Face off, though, in Australia, in this event, actually, in the Australian Open in 2022. Felix won in 4. Randomly, all 4 sets went to tiebreaks. So, pretty competitive matchup there, and Felix did win in 4. And they faced off in Spain 2018 in, I believe that was either Challenger or a Futures event. I think it was a Challenger, and Felix did win 7-5, 7-5. So, based on history, I think that Fokina can win a set here. I think Felix is going to win. So that's where I'm going to start off with. But trying to find value on a guy who I think can be a head case in Felix, and for a guy that's about minus 300 or so, I think I might gamble a bit. I think I am going to go with Felix to win and both players to win a set. I think that's a decent way of cutting into the minus 300 juice. You can get Felix to win and both players to win a set. Plus 146 Like, sure, I'll take that. You're saving like $3-4. That's a good deal. I think that's a great way to account for Felix being a clown while accounting for Fekina being a bigger clown, which is kind of the expected outcome between these two guys. Give me Felix in 4. Think it definitely should be a guy who should have some success in this match against Felix, but not enough success to win. So I'll go with the Felix to win, and both players win a set there at plus 146. Kind of a prop that I actually found mid last year, and it worked out well for us. So I am going to go with that again for this one. See Manzi ranting about Rublev, who did lose in straight sets, which is why the over ended up losing. Yeah, I've mentioned Rublev needing, I'd say, a psychiatrist in the past, but to be honest, Fonseca is just really, really good. Like I've talked about it, he's won, I think, I forgot how many matches in a row he's won. 14, maybe? It might be 14. He's an absolute machine. Like, I praised him last year and when he went on that massive run in Rio. And, yeah, the guy is really good. He's 18. He's a potential future top 10 guy. Like, Fonseca's upside is tremendous. I'll put it this way. I said it before. I thought Rublev was going to lose. I thought he'd win at least one set. So I can understand your frustration, but I do think that I'd say Fonseca winning that match was not too surprising. The guy's an absolute machine, and he's only 18. He's going to be really, really dangerous for a really long time. Shout out to Brazil, though, who now has a new face of of men's tennis. So shout out to Brazil. They might have another potential star on tour in the future. Anyway, moving on to the next matchups. That's going to cover the first day. For the second day, I'm going to skip over a couple matches, though. For the lock and dog pick, by the way, just as a spoiler, I did 2 separate parlays. So there are 4 matches I am going to skip over from day 2. So just keep that in mind. So there are going to be some matches I end up jumping through. You might be wondering, why am I skipping this good match? I didn't skip it. I'm saving it for the end of the show. Moving on to the next matchup, you have for this one, we'll go with Berrettini against Rune, which is a pretty good match for a second round. Now, for this one, Rune is a decent favorite. Not that big of a favorite, though. He's around minus 125. Yeah, I was kind of exaggerating. He's around minus 125. I think he was a bigger favorite, and the line ended up coming in a bit sharper on Berrettini. So the money line did drop a little bit. Rune, though, is barely a favorite at minus 125. You have Berrettini at plus 100. For the actual head-to-head history, Rune is 4-1. Faced off in Shanghai last year, did win that one in 3. Rune did. Faced off in Cincinnati, Rune did win that one in 3 as well. Faced off in Acapulco, Rune won 6-0, 1-0 in 2023, and Berrettini quit, so he was injured. Faced off in Indian Wells, Berrettini did win in 2022 in 3 sets. So for the first round matchups, Rune made it interesting again, because he always does, because he's a clown. 1-5 against Zhang. Zhang is still good, don't get me wrong, but Rune did win that one, and he definitely made it interesting. Probably more than it needed to be. As for Berrettini, lost the first set to Nori, eventually did win that one in 4. Now, Rune and Berrettini should kill each other. So first glance, over. I think it's going to be a very competitive match. I mentioned before, a lot of these matches have gone to a deciding set in the head-to-head. In fact, 3 of the 4 career meetings did end up going to a decider. You had one Acapulco match where Berrettini was basically dead, and he ended up dropping out, so I'm not really going to count that. Had a walkover in Monte Carlo, but every match that's been completed, all 3 hardcore matchups that did not involve an injury, ended up going to a deciding set. So I see a competitive matchup here. It's really tough on the money line because I can see either guy winning. Rune, you could argue, might struggle fatigue-wise with the overall conditions in Australia after going 5 sets against Zhang. But I still think Rune is so accustomed to going 5 sets that I could see him turning it around. And of course, he'll milk a random injury timeout. He'll find a way to maybe get by. Berrettini still doesn't have a good backhand, so of course that's a main flaw in his game. Good server, though, not the best returner. I just see them killing each other. Give me the over in this one. I'm not going to overthink this. I think you're going to see a very close matchup that could go either way based on how the money line is priced. I think that's fair. I would probably say Rune if I had to pick, but I'll go with the over. Give me a 4 or 5 set marathon where either guy could win. That's my main thought on that one. Moving on to the next matchup. You have a matchup between, we'll go with Fonseca against Sonego. For this one, Fonseca is minus 340. You have Sonego at around plus 275. Now, for that history, Fonseca actually beat Sonego last year on clay did win 7-6, 7-5. So Sonego did look pretty good against Wawrinka in the first round. Did go to 4 sets, though. Each set was competitive, but he did win in 4. As for Fonseca, said before, he has been a machine, whether involved in next-gen finals or a challenger or even Australian Open qualifying or main draw against top 10 guys. He's been rolling. In fact, he has not dropped a set in the entire year. He's just been dominating everybody. So for the matchup, give me Fonseca, probably minus 1.5 sets, or maybe even for the game spread. Sonego, I said this last year. Coincidentally, before we actually picked him to win a title, which he actually did in Winston-Salem. But we said last year, Sonego really never wins back-to-back matches, and that's been an issue of his for years. I think you're looking at a good spot for Fonseca. He's been a freight train, and nobody can stop him right now. Sonego's got talent. I think that he's still a head case. I think Sonego will take him, or I should say I think Sonego will be taking, I say mentally, to the brink, and I think he'll fail. So give me Fonseca, either minus 1.5 sets. Should be a bit juicy, though. Or you could go with Fonseca, maybe even just dominating. I think he's the better player, as crazy as it sounds. Fonseca's really, really good. And I feel like, once again, it's all happening so fast for this challenger guy that's suddenly becoming a world beater. He's that good. I said it last year. Once he figured out a little bit with the net game, and once he limited the unforced errors a bit more, he was going to be a serious issue for a lot of players, and the sky's kind of the limit. That's what we're getting. And right now, the limit does not really exist because he's really, really good. I'll take him to win, if I had to guess, 3 or 4 against Sonego in that one. Moving on to the next matchup, you have, where do I want to go with this one? For the next one, I'll go with a matchup between, there are a bunch of matchups, by the way, that I see just going distance. I see Girona Echeverry going distance. I see Moroz and Tiafo being a very competitive war. For the next one, I'll go into, you know what? I'll go with the battle of one-handed backhands. Give me Shapo and Musetti. For this one, Musetti is, once again, actually, I don't have any lines on this one. Let me see if I could actually find lines here. The platform I was using has no lines posted. I do see lines. They're minus 110 apiece. So for this one, I think that Shapo is very alive to win it, and I do think that Musetti, just by winning in the first round in 4 against Arnaldi, he looked good. It wasn't easy. It was kind of the match I thought we would get. Shapo, though, did end up winning in 4 against Agut. For this one, I see a competitive matchup. Faced off last year, Musetti did win in 3. This could be a 5-setter, to be honest. It would not shock me if you ended up getting a 5-set war between these two guys. I think I would pick Shapo. I think Shapo is a bit more proven on hard court if I had to pick, but Shapo is such a head case. Musetti can be too, though. We saw him once again drop a set lead against Munar in the previous event he was in, so it could get interesting. I think I'll go with Shapo. I think he's a little bit, I'd say, better, or at least I think his ceiling on hard court's better than Musetti's ceiling on hard court. So I'll go with Shapo, but I think it'll be a 5-setter. That screams a war to me. So I'll go with Shapo to win a war, but I don't mind the over in games for that one. Thoughts on the Thompson and Borges sets? I think if Thompson wins, it goes 4 or 5. So I'll go with the over on that one. I think Thompson is the better player, but Borges is 2 in a lifetime, and Borges has been pretty solid lately, despite dropping the first set all the time. I don't mind the over. Think you'll probably get 4 or 5 sets in that one. Moving on to one of the last couple matches we'll talk about for this one. By the way, apologies that we are skipping a couple of main guys with Joker and with Alcaraz, etc. Like, what do you think's going to happen? They're going to win probably comfortably. Like, there's no value talking about a guy that's minus 5,000, at least for the sake of the matches individually. So I'm not going to bother with those. Apologies if you're expecting breakdowns on Alcaraz or Joker. I'm not going to bother. Think those guys should win pretty comfortably. Now, for the last match we'll talk about, actually, we'll go with the matchup between Shelton and Busta. Should be a fun one, though, because Busta looks very good. Won in straight sets in his matchup, and I was kind of surprised by that. Thought that it'd be a bit more competitive, but he won in 3. As for Shelton, I thought he'd beat Nakashima. I thought 3 competitive sets were in the cards, but I thought it'd probably go 4 or 5. And Shelton did win 7-6, 7-5, 7-5. So for the head-to-head history, never faced off against each other. For the actual money line price here, Shelton is minus 400. Busta is plus 300. For this one, I'm going to go back to kind of my new favorite market here. I'll go to Shelton to win with both players to win a set. I think you're looking at what should be a 4 or 5 setter. Now, unfortunately, the odds are not up yet for this match. I think that Busta will get on the board. I'll pick Shelton to win. I think his serve will eventually be too much to handle, as the match unfolds. I think that you're looking at Busta, whose serve can be weak, and I think that Shelton will force some break points enough to actually win the match. Give me Shelton in 4 in this one. I think Busta will look sharp for at least one set, sharp enough to win a set, but eventually lose. But either way, that's going to wrap it up for the second round. And now it's time to move on into the lock and dog picks. Forward to that, though, want to remind you once again that we are brought to you, new sponsor, by the way, by Stake.us. A reminder, SGPN's partnered up with America's ultimate social casino, Stake.us. Stake.us is a free-to-play social casino available in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. All your favorite games are there, and even play with live dealers. Use the promo code SGPN. At sign-up, you'll get $250K in gold coins, which can be used for the free-to-play games, and $25 stake cash, which can be played and redeemed for real cash. Stake.us, promo code SGPN. That's Stake.us, promo code SGPN. We are also brought to you by Fantasy because they have a lot of great items on their pick-em menu. They have a lot of ways to win money, whether it involves profit boosts or gimme pick'ems. They have the NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, and more. You could also use specials and boosts on flex entries. For my upcoming entry, what do I want to go with here in this one? You know what? I'll go with Jaden Daniels higher on his rushing yards. The lines have not been great at containing mobile quarterbacks. I think that you're looking at Daniels being involved with his legs quite a bit. Give me Daniels higher on his rushing yards for that game against the Lions. Reminder, though, when you do sign up for your new account, use the code SGPN for a first-time deposit offer up to $1K. And a reminder, you could also get a special pick there. So promo code SGPN, claim special first-time deposit offer up to $1K bonus cash on your fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished a preview in the second round. Apologies, by the way, if I ended up skipping a match you wanted me to talk about. There are a lot of matches to get through. I went through the ones that caught my eye. So apologies if you're expecting breakdowns and other stuff. I did what I could. Time to move on, though, into the lock and dog. By the way, see Tim subscribing. Thank you. Welcome to the show. Getting into the lock and dog. Once again, decided to go for some parlays for this one. For the lock, I'm going with what is, in my opinion, the safest leg right now in tennis. And you have what I think is a pretty mispriced line. For the lock, I am going to go with Sinner in straight sets. That's the safe leg. And I'll throw in Hurkacz money line at -125. Yeah, you were kind of reading my mind there, Rex, because I had Hurkacz in my actual lock parlay. So for the lock, I'm going to start off with Sinner. Really not going to have to say much. He's -8,000. He's won 21 straight sets. The guy's an absolute machine. You really can't beat him on hard court, and I think that School Cat is going to have some problems. School Cat's lost 5 of his last 7. He had a war in the first 2 sets against Daniel in the first round. Eventually did win in 4. Sinner, though, had a couple tie breaks against Jari, and people are going to be panicking, going, I can't believe it. Sinner's vulnerable. No, he's really not. I think Jari served insanely well, and people didn't realize, because Jari is also a head case, but he has a bunch of firepower, and his serve can regularly get into the mid-130s. If you serve 130 and you're landing about 70% of your first serves for the first 2 sets, you're going to be tough to break. So I'm not going to roast Sinner for that at all. In fact, I think Sinner played well just by having a couple of marathon sets there, and he dominated in the third. So I think Sinner will dominate once again. School Cat, a nice win against Daniel for a guy that kind of needed it. But Sinner's won 21 straight sets. He's in his own league right now on hard court. He'll win in straight sets. As for Hurkacz, the price I think is too cheap. Hurkacz is -230 on the money line, and he did beat, once again, Griekspoor in straight sets. Griekspoor is a good player. Yes, he was a bit out of shape, but still a straight set win nonetheless. You're looking at Kekmanovic, though, had a 5-set marathon against Vlahovic. Sure, I'm not going to be impressed by that performance. Vlahovic is more of a clay guy. I still love Vlahovic. I think he's a good overall veteran who can sneak up on you, but I think that Kekmanovic was playing good tennis, did lose to Korda in the semis of the last event. Then he had a 5-setter against Vlahovic, so not exactly a great showing there. I thought Hurkacz played well. The argument is he fit? He's fit enough to win in straight sets. I'll tell you that much, but I'll go with him on the money line in this one. I think that you're looking at what should be a fun matchup, but I think that you're looking at Hurkacz being the better player. Faced off on hard court in 2023, most recent meeting, Hurkacz won in 3. Believe he bageled Kekmanovic in the final set. But I think that it's a pretty cheap price, and I think that for a guy that just won in straight sets, to beat a guy that went to 5 against basically a clay specialist, and I think that Hurkacz is the better player, made the quarters last year, took Medvedev to 5. I think that it's a very good combo play. -125, Like, sure, I think it's a great price. I'll take that. You could argue that maybe the reason why the price is so cheap on Hurkacz is because that he might be a little bit injured. The serve is still great. He looked good in the United Cup, and I think that he's a guy who's better, objectively speaking, than Kekmanovic on hard court. I'll take that once again as the second leg. Give me this 2-pick parlay as my lock at -125. For the dog, I am going to go with the over 2.5 sets the over 3.5 sets parlay, which I have done in the past. For this one, I'll start off with the first match. I am going to go to the matchup between Draper and Kokkinakis. I'll go with the over 3.5 sets in that one, parlayed with the over 3.5 sets in the Mensik and Ruud match. And those two parlayed together over 3.5 sets, or in this case, both players to win a set, is plus 133 on FanDuel. Starting off with the match between Draper and Kokkinakis, all three career meetings did not end in straight sets. These guys kill each other. Every time they face off against each other, I see that being the case. Draper won 5 against Navone in the first round. Kokkinakis won 4 against Safulin. I see a lot of competitive sets between them, and I see a very, very back-and-forth battle. Each of Draper's last 3 matches have not ended in straight sets. Each of Kokkinakis' last 5 matches have not ended in straight sets. Both guys kill each other every time they face off against each other, and both guys really never win easily. It's the Kokkinakis special in Grand Slams. You strap in, you get yourself comfortable, and you're expecting 5 sets. It's the Kokkinakis experience. You really can't complain about it because it's entertaining tennis, full of drama, but I think you're looking at what should be a very fun competitive matchup here. I think each guy wins at least one set. Give me the over 3.5 sets in that one. And then for the other matchup, Mensik, kind of the same boat here as Draper and Kokkinakis. Both guys drop a lot of sets. Each of Mensik's last 4 matches have not ended in straight sets. He did win in the first round in 4. Wasn't the easiest, though, and I think that he could potentially drop a set here to Ruud. The serve is good, but if his second serve if his first serve's not landing, I think Ruud will be able to, once again, find some openings. Beat Basilashvili, though, in 4. Mensik has really not been a great tiebreak guy recently, so maybe Ruud can find a way to win a breaker, but Ruud has really not won in straight sets that often recently. Ruud has lost at least one set in 9 of his last 11. So once again, both guys dropping sets left and right. I see a very close matchup here. I think that Ruud, despite having a 5-setter against Munar, will have one set where he might punt, one set where he finds his groove, and I think that being the case should result in a potential marathon here. So for the actual wording, by the way, of the bet, if you have a book that offers you both over 3.5 sets and both players to win a set, take the both players to win a set because that can get graded as soon as that happens. If you get a retirement mid-third set and you're on pace for 4, some books won't pay you out. So keep that in mind. FanDuel, though, has the over 3.5 sets and both players to win a set. They mean the exact same thing, but one does get graded out quicker in case of retirement. Some nonsense there. So once again, go give me the Draper, Kokkinakis, both players to win a set, with the Ruud and Mensik match, both players to win a set at plus 133 as my dog. So once again, the plays for the second round, the lock's going to be on a 2-pick parlay. Give me Sinner in straight sets with Hurkacz moneyline at minus 125. For the dog, I am going to go with the Draper, Kokkinakis over 3.5 sets, or in other words, both players to win a set, parlayed with Mensik and Ruud, both players to win a set at plus 133. That is on FanDuel. That's going to wrap it up. We're back once again for the third round of the Australian Open. Until next time, find me on Twitter at Reichel Radio. Find me on the NBA show, the MLB show as well. Can do NBA, by the way, in about 50 minutes. So if you want to find that on YouTube, find that on the SGPN NBA channel. Once again, like, subscribe, and a reminder, you can check out the podcast on Spotify or Apple as well. Check out the merch store as well. Hopefully you enjoy the show. A reminder, tell your friends, all the picks are free. We've been rolling lately, and hopefully we'll keep rolling here in 2025. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.